my backyard at night. What he showed me saved my life. 2 years ago, my wife Angie and I finally bought a house after getting outbid by investment corporations on everything decent. We settled on a 4,500 square foot colonial in a rough neighborhood near the freeway. The basement was unfinished with strange spirals and crude faces scribbled on the walls. Kids, the realtor said, like she knew who drew them. Fixing up the basement would be quite the value builder. The area was known more for crime than anything else, but our neighbors were incredibly friendly. Maybe it was the threat of danger that made everyone want to know each other. We made games out of the neighborhood's quirks. When we heard pops at night, we'd guess fireworks or gunshots. When we saw large turds on sidewalks, we'd play human or dog. Unfortunately, we became experts at both. Gunshots crack sharp while fireworks boom, and we hadn't seen any dogs large enough to leave those deposits. There was definitely a homeless problem, but they minded their own business. Our neighbors acted like they were ghosts, like they weren't even there. I'd smile and say hello when I passed them. The least I could do was treat them like human beings. One night after a movie, I was washing dishes at the kitchen sink. The window looks out to our heavily wooded backyard. In the dark, I could only see my reflection and a sliver beyond. I frowned at the shadow of what looked like a tall, dark stump. I swayed to see past my reflection, and my heart leaped. Between the bushes nearly out of sight, a man was standing perfectly still, staring back at me. I dropped the bowl and it crashed in the sink. "You okay, honey?" Angie called from the living room. "Yeah, I'm gonna take the trash out," I said, not wanting to alarm her. I walked past the trash and opened the back door. "Hello?" The wind was blowing hard, and branches waved like they were warning me. "What do you want?" I stepped forward, trying to show I wasn't scared, but it was the tepid step of prey. The man said nothing. I took another step and jumped when my movement triggered the motion light. I composed myself and yelled, "This is private property! If you don't leave, I'm calling the police!" The man walked forward where I could see him better. He was at least 6'6" and wore a heavy wool overcoat that stretched to his ankles. His face was gaunt with a white scar across his black skin just below the chin. He stopped just in front of me and held out his fist. When he uncurled his fingers, cupped in his enormous palm was a pill. "I don't have any drugs," I said. His expression didn't change. No want or question in his eyes. "You want me to take it?" I pointed at his hand. I reached out and plucked the pill from his palm. It was just an empty capsule. Whatever had been inside was gone. "What do you want?" I asked again. He opened his mouth, revealing the severed stump of a tongue. Then he widened his eyes and began mouthing something. My blood ran cold because I felt certain it was some kind of curse. "Please leave," I murmured. He turned and stepped into the night. I watched the bushes sway as if a giant was parting through the woods. The next day, I asked around about the tall man. I walked to the strip mall and described him to homeless people, but as soon as I started, they all looked at the ground and shook their heads. On my way home, I stopped by two men working on a car. "Do you know of a tall guy around here that wears a giant coat?" They started laughing. "You talking about a really big motherfucker? Black coat, nasty scars?" "Yeah, that's Tall Frank. He's a can man. Makes his living collecting recycling. He was acting weird in my backyard last night." "Weird how?" "He was staring at me. When I went out, he tried to mouth something." Both their eyebrows rose. "You saying Tall Frank tried to communicate with you?" "Tall Frank talks to nobody. And by talks, I mean communicating in any way. He cut his own throat to never talk again," the other chimed in. "That's just rumor. Tall Frank showed up 20 years ago. No one knows where he came from. Some say it was a dog that bit him, but I never seen no dog that'll slice your tongue out." "What do you think he wanted?" They shrugged. "No clue, but tell us when you find out." The next several days, there was no sign of Tall Frank, but I began falling ill. Headaches at first, then heart palpitations and body aches. I assured myself there was no such thing as curses, but the encounter dominated my thoughts. Angie was working late recently, and when I had the house to myself, I'd stand at the kitchen window staring into the backyard obsessively. A few nights later, I saw him again. Same spot as before. I dropped the teapot and ran to the back door. "Hey, what do you want with me?" Tall Frank gestured with his scarred neck for me to follow. I looked down at my bare feet, but he was already walking. "Just leave us alone." I stepped after him cautiously. When I got past the bushes, I saw him standing near the trash cans in the alley. He crossed over and sat on a crumbling retaining wall. He gently tapped the stone next to him. "I'm not sitting." He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out an envelope. Then he reached in again and pulled out another. "What are those?" He extended both envelopes. I snatched them and stepped back. They'd both been opened. I took the papers out of one. It was a handwritten letter on college-ruled paper. The ink was smeared like it had been dunked in water, but I could still read it. When I finished reading, I stared at Tall Frank in disbelief. Angie had a lover. I looked at the other envelope. The letterhead read Atlantic Life Insurance. A policy had been opened in my name for $250,000. I stumbled to the retaining wall and sat. The pills. I thought about the empty capsule. It was my emergency albuterol. An overdose would start with headaches and heart palpitations. "Angie is trying to kill me?" Suddenly, Tall Frank's arm was around me, patting my shoulder like a father. "The things you can learn from people's recycling," I said. Tall Frank nodded, and we watched the upstairs light turn on. My wife appeared in the window. She twisted something in her fingers and tapped it into a mug. A minute later, I heard the back door open. "Honey, are you out here?" Angie called sweetly. "I made you some tea. I guess the homeless around here don't always want change. Sometimes they want to save your life." A homeless man kept appearing in my